Beginning our Daf in Mesech Kesuvos Daf Hey, we begin 4 lines down at the top of the Yomit, where the Gemara continues a discussion related to the previous Daf regarding the Kesuvos Dichrin. We spoke about the additions of the Kesuba. We spoke about the halacha specifically about when they could be collected. So we spoke about that if he wants to add on, he could add on. And we said that comes to teach us that the Tanoi Kesuba have the halacha like the Kesuba itself, and we went through many different cases. Mecheres, Mecheles, Meredes. We spoke about many different halachas. Each are categories in their own right that are specific halachas around the Kesuba. And we said that the Sefes, the add-ons, the Tanoi, are like the Kesuba, and that's we continue regarding related discussion. Let's say Kesuvos B'Nindichin, it's not the same as the Tesefes, which you add on to the 100 to 100, but it's also Tanoi Kesuba. Is it exactly like the Kesuba, or is it different? Somebody doesn't discuss in today's daf are Kesuvos B'Nindichin. Like we said, that literally translates as the Kesuba of the male sons, which is one of the Tanoi Kesuba. The Kesuba says the following words: B'Nindichin, the male son, the Habalechem, I know you can have from me. Inun yartin kasab Kesubasayich, they can inherit the money of your Kesuba. Yesachul kohen gemachuhain, which is, as we explained in the previous daf, what happens is that in the Kesuba, it's both ways. It's what he's giving to her and what she's bringing into the marriage. And we want that the father-in-law should write a lot of money to his daughter like his son. He's not going to give so much if he knows that the husband's going to inherit it, because the husband, if the woman dies and the husband is still alive, he's like a lekeach. He gets all her stuff. But if he knows that the one who's going to get it is specifically going to be his, because in Talmudic times especially, we have many wives. And if it's going to go to all the other kids, other wives' kids, he's not going to write so much money. But if he knows he's going to stay in the family, he'll give that to Kesuvos B'Nindichin. Now, the Gemara brings several machlekes between Mas and Machasi and Probadisa. There's 2 different places in Babel regarding Kesuvos B'Nindichin. One is regarding Kesuvos B'Nindichin, regarding this Kesuba of the male sons. This that they collect that amount of the Kesuba from the father's estate. Is that even Mishabdi? Is that even from his collateral? I mean, to say, like, just like the Kesuba you could collect from a Shabbatim, would that also apply to Kesuvos B'Nindichin? If an Amana has to take a shvuah for collecting a Kesuba with metalton less than benayu, the metalton that he had designated were lost, so she have to make a shvuah for collecting her Kesuba. An Amana has to make a shvuah for collecting Kesuba when yichud la'ar b'ched metzu. He designated, this is the land you're going to get from, but he didn't demarcate the 4 boundaries. He only demarcated 1 boundary. Is she confident on what's the halacha regarding making a shvuah there? Amal Adam Kisser v'chas mahavli, unrelated idea. If, let's say, someone says to witnesses, write and sign and give it to him, do you have to also consult him before you're going to do it and say, are you sure you want to do this or not? That's another machlekes between those 2 different places. Then the Gemara has 2 ways to understand machlekes in the Mishnah at the beginning of the parak. Tesefet Kesuba min the Erison. This that we say that the additions of the Kesuba are from Erison. How to exactly qualify that halacha that you're saying it's even from Erison. Some important terms and concepts in today's daf for almana, the next assignment. When the widow comes to collect, obviously widow is that her husband's dead. So now she's collecting from the orphans who inherited her late husband. Like tipachel b'shvur, she could only collect with an oath, swearing that this is money that's owed to her. And the reason for that is concerned the matzari atvasa. Maybe the husband had already given her a bundle of money for her kesuba, and therefore she has to swear that no, it's not the case. Azim basumdin is the halacha that we go based on the valuation that we assess specifically a situation. That's how we decide the halacha. So we begin the current daf, again daf nun hey, 4 lines down the top of the Yomid. In the previous daf we had said this halacha of Tanai Kesuba Keksuba. So in that context, we were talking about the additional provisions in the Kesuba. They were comparable to the initial Kesuba of 200 zuz. So that includes, let's say, Beligvis Minay Karka. They're collected from his properties, but not from his metatlan. Now, we have on the Mishnah Daf in the Aleph that said that Ikar Kesuba, all his nechasim are chrayin for the Kesuba. So therefore, Tarfetz Malakuches. She could collect her Kesuba from those who bought since after she got married, because Shia Buddha Kedemis, her Shiba is beforehand, she has a lien on the property from the moment they got married from the Kesuba. Now the question that our Gemara starts off with, Itma, we learned this following. Kesuvos B'Nindichin, this tonight Kesuba of Kesuvos B'Nindichin. Pumba Disa Amri, we have a machlekes. Can it also be collected from Rishabbanim? So that's a machlekes. Pumbedisa Amri, the people of Pumbedisa, they said, Lo tarfa memeshati. No, that cannot be collected from the properties that were sold off. And the reason that is because yiltun tanan. The terminology that's used in the ksuba is inun yavtun kesav kesubasayach. They're going to inherit the kesav of your ksuba. Now, Yerusha is not Torah from Lekuches. So here also, although it's a Tanai of the ksuba, and we had such discussions previously when the wording of the ksuba says yartun, so since it's Yerusha, so it's not going to be able to be collected from the Nachasim Mishabad. Another, the name of Mas Machasiam, the people of Mas Machasiam, they said no. You could collect from Mishabadim. Why? Because Yisvun Tanan. The terminology actually in the ksuba is not Yiltun, it's actually Yisvun they should take, which is a terminology of a creditor. The creditor could collect from Nachasim Mishabadim. So that's a machlekes regarding what the girsa in the ksuba is, and hence what the halachic ramification is going to be. And so the halacha is loy tafim mishabdi. No, these sons cannot collect their mother's specific ksuba from Mishabadim because the girsa in the ksuba is inherit, and inheritance, when children inherit their father, they don't collect from stuff that he sold during his lifetime. They're not considered as if they're bali chayvis, and so too these benin dichrin are not going to collect it from Mishabadim. Another machlekes, says the Gemara, is metaltal regarding if someone designates movable items for his wife's ksuba. So let's say he designates this Ferrari. Says, okay, you want to collect it, we're going to get it from this car. And then he does. The Ishnim Banai, and it's around. And she collects from it, so she takes it below shvur. That she takes without an oath. Because why did the rabbi say that from the orphan's assets she could only collect with an oath? It's because we're concerned, as the Gemara says in Bava Basra, maybe tzrori atvasa. Maybe he already gave her a bundle of money to say, no, this is Vanag Tzibur. And so if she's coming to collect, we're like, we think she probably got already a bundle, so you got to take it off. Say you didn't get it, fine. But over here, this is the tzrori atvasa. This is the bundle of money that he put away. This is the car that he had told her to collect from, so therefore, she doesn't have to take an oath when she's collecting that metalton that he had designated for her.
It was another term.
What?
Maybe designated other, in addition to that Ferrari.
Something else that's already the value of the ksuba. But because we know that he had designated this metalton as her, for her ksuba. So you want to know that maybe he gave her something else? What?
How do we know?
It sounds like that he had told us that he had designated this, that this was for her ksuba. Like a lot of times they write in the document, they say, and this is going to be for we could collect your ksuba from. So here we don't. There's no reason for her to have to. Right, it's really for the second half. Really, it's this other next case. Let's say it's not around. Let's say the car got lost, got stolen, whatever this and that's not around anymore. Now is where we have a machlekes what the halach is going to be. So
what if the value of it is changed?
What?
What if the value of it has changed?
Oh, of the metalton,
Yeah.
it changes.
Spoke about it yesterday.
Which you mean to say? Yesterday when the wine. Oh, yeah. I mean that was by the daughters getting fed, right? Yeah. What does that have to do with it? Changes? I don't know. How do you pay up something that's meaning if it goes up? The question of how we designate it, what does it mean? Yeah, usually it's like from here you could collect. You have to know what the designation is. Does it mean this item itself, or does it mean that whatever you'll get, you collect from that. You could sell that item and then get that. So if it means that you sell it and you get that value, so if it's enough, it's enough. And if it's not enough, then you'll collect from other things. But at least we don't have the tzrori atvasa. You don't have the concern that maybe she got collected from somewhere else because you know this is what was designated. But in this case, let's say it's not around anymore. So Pamadisi Amri, they say B'lei Shvur. You collect without an oath. Why? So the reason for that is because since these got lost, so he didn't go ahead and give her something else, and because this is what he had designated for her, and this got lost. But there's no other tzrori atva, so this was the one that he had designated. And now all his properties are responsible for the ksuba. So of course she could collect from a car cash. She doesn't have to take an oath because there's no concern about tzrori atva. This was the car that he had designated for her. But they say that no b'shvur, it requires an oath. But Velchas Gemara could prove halachas b'shvur without an oath because, like we just explained from Rashi, that no, there's no concern of tzrori atfasa because this was what it was. Now that it's lost, okay, fine. So he's not going to collect from the matatan, but even though he's collecting from karka, you could understand the bnei Moshe Machas said no, karka have to swear. No, because there's no tzrori atfasa. This was what was designated. This is lost. Fine, shkayach. That was what it was, and there's no concern for us to require her for an oath.
Why isn't the machlekes by any ksuba? Why is only machlekes when it's not here? This car. Any ksuba is 200. Why isn't there machlekes?
What do you mean? We said, let's say if the metalon is around, we said you don't have to take it
Fine.
off. But a regular
This is
karka,
the actual object. But if I say 200,
right? A regular ksuba, she has to swear
why he not?
because we're concerned by tzrori atfasa. A regular ksuba, we're concerned that she's coming to the orphan and she's saying, hey, I have to collect my 200 zuz. They're like, I think our father gave you probably something.
Okay.
He probably put something aside. So you want to come and collect from us? He already gave you a ksuba. So you have to swear.
Okay, but here the car's not here, right? So in the case when the car's not here, so now she just wants the money.
Oh,
She wants
so
$20,000 for the car, right? Whatever.
so you're asking on the one who says, why don't you have to swear?
Yeah.
Oh, so the reason we don't have to swear, the way Rashi makes it sound like, is because there was no other tzari atfasa. So this was the car. The car got lost. She didn't take it. This let's say, whatever movable item it is, that got lost. So she's like, we know that she didn't get it because it got lost. Question is, would she have to swear now when she wants to collect from some of the other properties? So that the halach is going to be like the one that says is because what are you concerned about? He gave me money, and you know he gave me that car. You know that Acura was what he told me I could have, and then they got lost or whatever. And so what do you want me to swear for? I didn't get anything else. So therefore, pay me up the ksuba of the 200 zuz. Another machlekes is, let's say yichud la'ara. Let's say he designated a piece of property. So again, we know that this is what he set aside for the ksuba, but he did it. And so the first halach is the obvious one. Ba'arba matzrana. Let's say he designated on the 4 sides. So she has the 4 boundaries. When he's alive, he set up. This is where you're going to collect the ksuba from. It's not poitiki, which means poiteki. This is what you're going to collect from. And he dies, so she collects that below shiur. I don't know, because again, most definitely, there's no tzrari, there's no bundle of money that he gave her, no suitcase full of cash that he gave her. We know this is what it was, so she collects this. The question is b'chad metzra. But let's say he only designated 1 boundary, so she doesn't know where exactly she's going to collect from, only 1 boundary of that property. So Pumbedisa Amri, they said below shiur, without an oath, and B'nei Muslim Chasam, they say b'shvur. Why does she have to swear? Because since he didn't write for her the 4 boundaries, so there's nothing. You have nothing to rely on. It's like as if he didn't designate anything for her. Because what does that mean? You show me 1 boundary. Where does that end? What's the actual area of this? So you have to be concerned that maybe he did give her a bundle because she was like not reliant on that, and she's only calm when she knew he put aside cash for her. And then we have to swear. What halacha actually is without an oath. That no, ultimately, that once he designated an area for her, we don't have to be concerned that he gave her any other bundles of money. And if she's coming to collect, that means to say she needs to come to collect from the orphans, whether it be that property or whatever it is. But she didn't get any other money there. The other mandama holds that she had already because she wasn't really relying on that piece of property. Because you didn't tell me exactly where, so he would have given her a bundle.
What is she collecting anyway?
Ksuba.
Why?
Her husband's dead.
Isn't it that his sons Yarshin Ksuba and they support her?
No, so if she dies first and then he dies, so then he Yarshins her Ksuba and then her kids Yarshin her Ksuba through the husband. When he dies, so she either is getting mezainis, she can get mezainis from the estate, but when she collects her Ksuba, then she's done. She doesn't get mezainis anymore when she's walking out.
This is what she's doing now?
Yeah, she comes to collect the ksuba now. Yeah, she's done. Another machlekes. Amala Aiden, let's say he tells witnesses, unrelated. Kisvu v'chasmu v'havale. He says, okay, do me a favor. I want to give this piece of property as a gift to this other person. I want you to write, I want you to sign, and give it to this person. So, kanumine, if they made an actual kinyan, they made a formal act of acquisition, the witnesses from the giver, so they don't have to consult with him if he still stands by his word that they should write it for him. Because once they made a kinyan, stam kinyan, says Rashi, quoting the Gemara Bavasa, is l'chsiba. So if they made a kinyan, we're presuming that it's meant to be a done deal to be written. So we don't have to ask him anymore. But if they didn't make a kinyan from him, he just told them, write, sign, and give it. So now there's machlekes again. They say they don't have to consult with him anymore. But when they they say no, you have to consult with him. And you have to consult with him. Ultimately, it was no kinyan, and even though he instructed, but he may have some reason to retract, and therefore, as you're about to do it, you do have to consult with him and ask him if he wants to go ahead and do this. Now, in the Mishnah, we had said that we said that although me'ikra din, that the ksuba has a set amount of 200 zuz for the basula and 100 zuz for the amama, we said a person may add as much as he wants. Now we had a machlekes in the Mishnah regarding the collection of that teisefes. The Talmud Kamet said if she gets widowed or divorced, whether from engagement or whether from marriage, she collects everything, the basic amount and the added amount. Lazar ben Azari, who we're going to quote right now, he said if they got married, she collects everything. If they were only engaged, then the basula gets the 200, the amana gets the 100, not the additions, because the additions were only amanas l'koinsa. It only includes the teisefes and the condition that they subsequently married. So that's what the Gemara quotes in the Mishnah. But Lazar ben Azari, he said from engagement she doesn't get that teisefes. So although she's going to get the ikk ksuba, the additions that he wrote on, oh I love you, I'm going to give you 10,000 or whatever is that if he dies within the engagement before the marriage, she doesn't get it. Now the Gemara's machlekes itmar between Rab and Rab Nosson. Chadam one says halacha is Lazar ben Azariah that yes, you don't collect the kesevos, the teisefes from the heirs. And the Chadam one says no, ain't halacha Lazar ben Azariah. No, like the Tanakama, you get it all even during the engagement. Says the Gemara, it's time. Let's prove the Rab Nosson who the Amar that because they didn't say who says what. Rab Nosson is the one who said halacha Lazar ben Azariah. Why? Because the Shemin Rab Nosson, we know Rab Nosson says the Azla Basu Umdina, that we go based on evaluation. In other words, we evaluate the intention by something that's not explicit, that the courts will evaluate, and they'll say, oh, we presume that that person had that intent, that a person will not write away his money for nothing. Why is he adding on so much money for this woman he's marrying? Is only because of what's called chibas biyah, the endearment of the intimacy they're going to have. That's like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah who says that no, even though you wrote the ksuba and the teisefes, it's only for the marriage that we're going to have. That's umdina. Although no one said that, but we're presuming that that was his intention. We see that's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's teaching, and we see Rabbi Nosson says a similar principle. So we can presume Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who said the halacha is like him, Rabbi Nosson. Why? Where do we find it? Because the Rabbi Nosson, he says the following halacha. Halacha k'b'shemen shazuri. Halacha is like b'shemen shazuri b'mesukin, by someone who is his life's in danger. Which this is a Gemara Gittin of Sanachim at Beis that says it's someone that's going out on a sea journey, or he's going in a caravan, that he says, write a get for my wife. So although he didn't say give it to my wife, but you write it and you give it. Why? Because obviously because of he's very perturbed and he's very confounded on his life, he doesn't get a chance to finish what he meant to say. But of course his intention originally was to say, to write and to give it. Shimon Shazuri says, not only that, but if someone's also a goisis or he's in danger, his life is in danger, and he says, write it, he doesn't say give it. So we're going to go based on umdina, we're going to presume that, of course, he didn't say give it, but to write it, but to give it, because since he's in danger of his life, he's not making a joke over here. Usually you say, oh, maybe it's just more making a mockery out of it. Write it, but he didn't say give it. No, we're going to say by Masukin and no relation to what we're trying to say. Another thing that Allah is like B'Shem Shazuri, as we continue in Beis, is a B'Trumas Maisa Shel Demai. What is that referring to? Unrelated to what we're talking about, it's just a teaching that Rabbi Nosson had said, Allah is like B'Shem Shazuri, by these two halachas. What's this halacha? It's a Mishnah Seflas Demai that says, the Trumas Meiser of Demai. What's Trumas Meiser? So what happens is that you take off Meiser, and then a tenth, which that goes to the Levi, and a tenth of that goes to the Kohen. The Levi has to give Meiser from his own Meiser. Now, Demai is what? Actually, Demai is what? So it sounds like who's on first. Demai is, what is this? Demai, what is it? Is Demai, which is basically when you go to the Am Haaretz and you take produce from him, he's selling produce, you don't know did he take off Meiser or not. So regarding the Trumas Meiser of Demai, which is they separated from this Demai Meiser and then a tenth from that Meiser, and then what happened was, it fell back into the Demai. So now it makes that whole chulin forbidden because of meduma. Meduma is when you have a mixture of truma and chulin, you can't eat it because of the mixture of the truma. Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says that even in a weekday, you can ask an Am Haaretz who you bought from him the payers, and you could ask him, did you take off maasros? Usually we're concerned that maybe not. So you have to separate maasros and then the trumas maaser. But now that I fell back into that produce, if he says, yes, bavadai, of course I took off maaser, before I sold it to you, you could rely on him. Why? Because since this whole halacha is rabbinic, the rabbis believed him in a situation of a loss like over here, because there's no way to rectify this to take off maaser again. You're going to have to sell it to Kahanim for a very cheap price for the value of Truma. So therefore, Shimon Shazuri says that you could rely on the Amaretz. Now, why does the Mishnah over there say even on a weekday? Is because there the Mishnah discusses a different halacha, that there is a difference, that on Shabbos only you could ask him and eat based on the way to sin because of Einik Shabbos. But when it's a Shabbos, you wouldn't be able to eat until you take off maaser again. That's why in that context, that halacha said that even during the weekday. But again, a lot of unrelated ideas. But we're just saying that halacha Shimon Shazuri also by Trumas Maaser of Demai, that if it falls back in, you could ask him and you could rely on him, and if he says, I took a maaser, okay, then you could eat that thing. But one thing is that we see that Reb Nassim, who says halacha like Shimon Shazuri by Mesukin, which goes based on Umdana, it would make sense that he's the one that says halacha like Reb Lazar Nazariah, who goes based on Umdana, that we're presuming that you didn't add this to Kesuvos for the Ketubah stam, you did it because you're going to be intimate. If you were never intimate, you never got married, so then you never wrote it for that purpose. Says the Gemara, but who was Reb Nassim's dispute? Was Rav. So you tell me Reb Nassim is the one that goes based on Umdana, and says the Gemara, Rav didn't go based on Umdana? But we have a different halacha that seems to say Rav also says Umdana. What's the halacha? Matna shchimera. The gift of a dying person. So someone's on his deathbed. The halacha is you don't need to have a kinyan. Why not? Anytime you want to make any acquisition, you have to have a maisa kinyan. Is because Chum instituted that his words should be like they're written and like they're given over already. Why? Because we're concerned about daitim eterefes. We're concerned that he's going to go crazy. Is at a time when he's passing off in this world, and every ounce of consciousness is important for this sick person. So he said, don't worry, whatever you say, it's like it's already done already. So the gift of a dying person should cost. So again, what happens if, let's say, there was a kinyan written on it? You don't need one. Everything he says, like it's done. But they actually wrote a kinyan on it. So it comes extra interesting machlekes. The Beit Rav, Mishmei Rav Ami, in Yeshiva Rav, they said the name of Rav, that actually Arkave Atrei Richshi, what happens is it's actually like riding on two horses. In other words, they gave this situation two powers. Because the document writes, Kedekotzer V'Rami Ba'arse, which means that he was ill and he was lying on his deathbed. And it says all the terminology of a shchimera, of a dying person. So it has the power of the halacha of a shchimera. At the same time, the fact that there was a kinyan written in that document, which only applies by a healthy person, they gave it the strength of a healthy person, as we'll explain in a moment what that means. Whereas a Shmuel, he disagrees, says no, Leidan my other says, I don't know how to qualify, how to judge such a case, that it's a shchimera that has a kinyan done with it. Now the Gemara explains the two different opinions. The Beit Rav, Mishmei Rav Ami, and Yeshiva Rav, they said the name of Rav, that Arkavat Shredikshim, what does it mean that was riding on two horses? Hadehi, on the one hand, it's Kamat Nazbari, it's like a healthy person's gift, because you made a kinyan, which is only by like a healthy person. At the same time, it's also like a dying person's gift. So what does this mean? The Gemara explains. On the one hand, it has the strength of the gift of a healthy person. Im Amad, if this person ends up getting up from his illness and he doesn't die, he cannot back out from his gift, meaning the halacha is by shchimera, a dying person, we presume that he was only writing off all his estate because he's going to die. But if he survives miraculously, he's like, I'm not going to be alone like a stone without anything that I have in the world. He gets it all back. But here, since they wrote a kinyan that has the koyach of matnas bari, you wrote off all your stuff, it's too late, I don't care what happens, you gifted it away already. So on the one hand, it has the koyach of matnas bari. At the same time, it also has the powers of the gift of a dying person, which does not apply by the gift of a regular healthy person, even that was done with the kinyan, which is, what kind of power is that? If he says halva asi, he says that my loan that was given to a certain person is given over leplaining. He's giving over the power of his loan that's owed to him to another person. The halacha is halva asi leplaining. His loan is now owed to that other person. Now, in contrast, a healthy person, regarding a kinyan, you cannot acquire with money that's owed to you as a debt to someone else, because a matbeya, which is money that's owed to you, is not nikna b'chalipin. You cannot acquire that by like giving your pen here. Tell this person, take my pen, and you take my pen, you go to the Rav Erev Pesach, everyone knows these kinyan only when you sell your chametz, and he gives them and he says, okay, you acquired my loan. No, you cannot acquire the guy's loan with a kinyan b'chalipin. It's only agav karka, as the Gemara says in Bava Metzia Navav Meral, that you could acquire monies if you're acquiring also a piece of property with that. Now, this person that was kaina, if he dies, it's not going to be because of the kinyan that he did that person will acquire the loan. It's only because of the divrei shchimera. Shchimera kiksub nikbusum dam. So the Rav says that this matna shchimera that had a kinyan written in it is going to have the power of both. It's going to have the power of matna's body, or even if he survives, it's not going to be able to back out. At the same time, it has the koich of matna shchimera, where he says my loan goes to that person, his loan goes to that person. Now Shmuel, he says, he says, I don't know how to judge this case. Why? She says, Shema, maybe the reason why a kinyan was written is because maybe he was not conclusive to make an acquisition with this gift by the virtue of being a dying person, which is like it's written and given over. Ela bishtar. Maybe he had in mind to say, no, I wanted to only work through the writing and the kinyan like a healthy person. And now, generally, a kinyan is meant to be written. The problem is the document of a dying person does not acquire when he's still alive, because he does not intend to give anything but only after he dies. And even according to Rabbi Yossi, says Rashi Gittin Avayin Beizam and Alf, that says that the date of the document will prove that it's from now. That's only by a healthy person who writes over all his estate to his son for after he dies, where his intention is to acquire the actual property from today, and just the produce and the utility he still wants to use, that will only be after he dies. But this guy, he doesn't intend to give anything when he's still alive, because I'm alive. No, the problem is once he dies, no kinyan could happen, because he's not here to acquire to that person. Because a document cannot work after he dies. So Shmuel says, I don't know what to do with this. He's mamish like the opposite of Rav. Rav says the recipient's can have the power of two types of kinyanim. Shmuel says he might not get anything. Because why is the shchimara making a kinyan? Maybe because I don't want it to work for shchimara. I want to do it with the kinyan. The problem is, but kinyan is only going to work when the document is going to be effective. The document is only effective after he dies, so actually he's not going to get anything. Okay, that's not for now. One thing says, the Rashi explained the Gemara's point, is that you see Rav is going based on the umdana. What does that mean? He's evaluating the intention of this person, that he must have been writing a kinyan because he wants to be atrei rakshi of it. He wants to give the guy two powers. Even though he didn't specify, still Rav is going to let you collect money through what we're evaluating must have been his intention. Shmuel's seemingly right. Shmuel said, we don't know. We don't know. How can you collect him? What's the matter with a raya? I was like, nah, Mistama, this is what the guy was trying to do. That's an umdan, that's evaluation. So, go back to the question. You told me that Reb Nosson was the one that paskin like Reb Elazar ben Azariah, because Reb Elazar ben Azariah's halacha is a halacha of umdana. But Rav also says halacha of umdana. So who's the one that paskins like Reb Elazar ben Azariah? So as the Gemara concludes on top of the Roman Aleph, Ela Rabbi, you're right. Tavayu, both Rav and Reb Nosson, Azli Bosa umdana. They both go based on evaluation. So mandam halacha, but we just don't know now who says what. But mandam halacha, the one that says halacha is Zari Shapa, of course makes sense because Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's halacha was a umdana. We presume that his Tosefes, so the Kesuvos was only for Nisuin, not for just Eris. Mandam ain't halacha. So what's the understanding one that says halacha is not Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? It says Chanami umdanaitahu. Here also it's an evaluation of his intention. Mishum mikruve daitahu. Why was he writing the Tosefes? Was for closeness. Even if they were only engaged and not intimate through Nisuin, they still were close, and therefore it makes sense to evaluate that he must have written it even just for engagement. That's what that mandam holds. That's the night. It's not just for intimacy. It's we're chasen kala, and we're very close, and we go and we take trips together, and we have a good time. Therefore, that's why that mandam held that it was even going to be the Tesevik Ksuba from the not like Elazar, even from the Eris, and even though it's going based on them. I think it's anything.